Awesome. Well, welcome to a bonus episode of Redesigning Your Relationships podcast. I'm your host, Giovanna Burgess-White, with my co-host.
Hello, I'm Yvette Valdenegro.
And for those of you guys who know us, work with us, our clients, our viewers, we are excited to have Laura Weisman on. She is, to me, a local Houston celebrity. She is not only a badass woman, she is a boss, she is a wife, she's a mom, she's a friend. And I've had the pleasure to be following her on her journey for 3 years. She may not know that. And just seeing the empire that she's built here in Houston, I've also seen her disrupt the industry that she's in, which is real estate. And so we're just happy to have her on today to really talk about herself, which I know she's probably like, oh my God, talk about me. But tell our viewers and tell our listeners who you are, what you do. Who's Laura?
I'm Laura Weisman. I am a real estate broker in Houston. My office is in Sugar Land, obviously based in Houston. I'm also a realtor, so I also produce. I do have my own clients, but first and foremost, I own a brokerage firm. And so leading and guiding real estate agents is, that's what the brokerage encompasses, and that's what a brokerage is for. So kind of have two different businesses under one umbrella.
We love it. And yeah, I think that's what we want to really talk about today is your businesses and you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our listeners and everything we teach is about the person who you are, and obviously what you do, your family. And I have to say, the Geo did say yes. She's been fanning for a very long time. All I've ever heard, Laura, which for good measure. So we want to tell the whole world about you. We want you to tell the whole world about you, but really because people are going to identify with everything that you have to say. You are successful. You're a mother. You're a businesswoman who's running around. You have an amazing company that the past year you've done a lot with. So we just really want to start there with just share with us what's been going on in the past year.
Yeah. I will say one thing that kind of stuck out to me right away from what you said. I just want to say first and foremost, number one, I do not consider myself a celebrity. There's so many people within my industry that I follow, and I'm watching their journey. Obviously, they're ahead of me, whether it's 5 years, 1 year, 10 years ahead of me. So I'm looking to them for inspiration as well. Yeah. And I think when you're constantly focused on that, you're not really giving yourself credit for the headway or the progress you are making. I was just talking with somebody earlier today. I had an agent that's thinking about joining, and I was talking with her, and I was talking about how you can't always be comparing yourself to someone else all the time. So one of the things that people really struggle with in real estate especially is these agents will look to other successful agents for inspiration, but then they also end up comparing themselves, and that's two very different things. Yeah, so I'm very forthcoming. I'm very transparent about my journey and what I've been through. I do not sugarcoat anything. One of the reasons for that is because I got married very young. I got pregnant when I was in college, and my first marriage, I went through a very, very nasty, bitter divorce after 12 years of marriage, and anything you can think of that was bad about me, I got just dragged through the mud and just publicly humiliated, in addition to just lies being told. And I fought it for a little while, and then eventually I just had to give in. And going through that, of course it wasn't easy, but when I came out the other side, I was like, okay, everybody knows everything there is to know about me at this point. Who cares? I can do whatever I want, because there really wasn't any type of image I was trying to protect. So it was almost a little bit of a rebirth. So I was able to come out and do whatever I wanted. But I know it's kind of a lengthy explanation, but it's all important because it's what has allowed me to say, I don't care what I expose about myself. I'm super vulnerable. And it's because I want especially other women. I mean, the mission for my business is to give people opportunity, but it originated with to give women opportunity. Just because, luckily we're on the leading edge of the part. It's like the time where women are finally getting to have ownership of themselves and be not just proud of themselves, but allowed to be a boss, So I'm very, very much willing to just tell my story in a very raw way. So that anybody else that's going through the same thing or about to go through the same thing, they don't think they're crazy or they don't think they're a failure. That's my main goal.
We love that.
Love that.
I mean, you're literally, what we teach as relationship coaches is we really do focus on who you are as a person, not what you're doing or what business you're in, and creating your legacy, which we talk about. We actually have a workshop on that. And I think that's why it's important for you to be on our show, because we're regular people. Even though I consider you a celebrity in Houston, but it's the truth. What you're doing is you're trailblazing, you're leading, especially in your industry. We're doing that in our industry, and we want to have women on to come and tell that story. And I think with Living Houston, you did that last year, and you built a brick and mortar. And I think I want you to really not only just tell us, I want the emotion and the feeling, because that's what women need to see and hear, is what you built in a year. I mean, you've been in real estate for a long time, and you've been leading, and you've been leading women, and we see you. I see you.
I appreciate that. It's so, I mean, I don't feel that way, but I appreciate hearing it so much.
Well, and you just said what your mission was.
Yeah,
to help
very,
women.
very true.
It's very clear with you being on social media, and this is something that we've talked about, how social media is social media. There's no right or wrong. We love it because we can share our story. We can see the transformations. Our clients see our transformations, but you've done that for us as well when we think of like people that are leading in Houston, and you've always been transparent. And I think the story that you're about to tell now about Living Houston, people can go back and see it on your Instagram and your highlights. They can see it in your pictures, because you literally, like, I feel like I go to work with you almost every time you post. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I wish I could post. If I could, I tell Johnny all the time, can Hector just move over to my office and just vlog me all day? I think Hector would love to do that, actually.
Yes.
But we have so much go on all day. I mean, like, I got there at 7:30 this morning, and it just has not stopped. I would love to share more and post more, and before I know it, 6 hours has gone by, and I'm on my phone answering clients and dealing with business, but I can't post. I even tell my staff, I'm like, sometimes I have to just go shut myself in the conference room for like an hour and take care of a post, because social media takes so much more time than you think.
Oh my God, yes.
It's so much. But I'll say, I mean, I'm sure you guys are probably coming to this crossroads. It's on the horizon for you as well. But every business is very different. And like you're saying, who is the person that you are as you're going through building the business? Is it kind of a separate entity from the business itself?
Yes.
What areas of yourself do you have to kind of come to terms with? And, you also have to be gentle with yourself. But, as you are flailing around and you're failing forward as you start the business or as you try to expand a business, I think it's extremely important to know that as you mess up or you make a bad decision, that does not mean that it's over. And it doesn't mean that you're a failure or that, you suck. That's not what it means. I got to a point, my story as far as wanting to start the brokerage, that's a whole other thing. I'm not going to take up time with that. But once I decided that I wanted to start it, I actually met with 7 different people that had boutique firms, or they were like independent brokers in the Houston market. I mean, the entire, Houston Metroplex and greater area. Met with these different people, sat down with them face to face. No offense, but they were all men. And every single one of them pretty much lied to me. Not one of them is still in business. So this was about 3 years ago, three and a half years ago. And I was kind of basing my decision, should I move forward with this dream that I have? I went to them to hear the business side of it, to see if it was even feasible. Long story short, moved forward with it, got it to a certain point. Of course, then COVID hit right after, filed that LLC, survived through that, operated from my house, and then I'm not even sure how, but people started coming to me wanting to inquire about being a part of the brokerage. And Johnny and I had many, many long conversations where I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. And I've either got to open a location or just, cut this loose, because there really is, it's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people within certain businesses reach that crossroads where you're like, we can stay where we are right now for probably forever, but am I satisfied with that? And if your answer is no, what is it that you need to be satisfied? And you're like, I don't know what I need ultimately, but I know I need the next phase of this to see where it will go. And a lot of times that takes money to be able to do that. So, you know, it's funny because I really wasn't even thinking about what we would talk about on this podcast today, but I actually posted yesterday about how when you're really good at something and you're comfortable with something and then you have to take a step back because you want to do something else, I mean, it's excruciating.
Yeah, we know.
It is excruciating. I mean, I know you're saying this isn't about you, but you guys started something over completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing that I just want to, for our listeners, Gio and I are always talking about how it's everything comes from within, right? Mm-hmm. What we do is just an extension of who we are. I want everyone to listen as they're listening to you and your story, who you are being while you're doing it, not necessarily the do. Because honestly, I'm sure you could give a checklist, right? As far as like, do the following things, check this, your emails, your social, whatever. But in essence, really
who about internally.
Yeah, who is Laura being in the moment that she's doing the social media, when she's meeting with the client, when she's making decisions. So that's coming out with what you're saying, which I just want to reiterate when people are listening, like really don't focus in on what'd she do? Who'd she meet with? That's not the thing. It's who is she being?
Well, and that
in
only
the moment.
applies if you're trying to open the exact same business I did, right? So I'm sure the majority of people that are listening to this, they're not trying to open a real estate firm. If you are, hit me up. You need to know what you're about to get into. Yes. I would tell everybody I'm very, very open about the fact that I say I got my ass handed to me when I started this business. There aren't many boutique real estate firms. You've got really big competition. There's a lot of very well-established, uber successful brokerages with roots around here, nationwide global brokerages that you're competing against. And so getting into this very quickly, I was like, okay, what is my value proposition? Like, what am I offering? What would make an agent want to come here? I mean, there are 65,000 licensed agents in Houston.
Yeah.
Half of those have their license active. I mean, that's a big...
Yeah, you can't use the excuse when you're like, I can't do that because the market's saturated. Hello, she's doing it. If you have a passion for it and you know you're going to be different, which the number one thing that I think when I see you from the outside, I'm not even in real estate, is the education part. You are so serious about educating not only the people on your team, but outsiders. You are a giver, you're an educator, even just from monthly headshots and opening up your office like to other real estate agents. Like it really does. I don't.
Well, she comes from a place of service. Yeah. What can I do to serve the person who's looking for a home and the people around me? And
well, it's mutually beneficial because I'm not successful unless my agents are. And for my agents to be successful, they need to be equipped. Yeah. So I'm just sharing everything. I mean, this industry is just like others. It's extremely competitive. There's the majority of the people in this business are like, well, I don't want to teach you anything that might help you excel because then you might beat me. Yeah. And I don't know. I've never had that. I mean, obviously, I'm like a huge believer in law of attraction and abundance and, karma and all that kind of stuff. But as far, what agents need to do to be successful, that's like a whole other
your industry
60-day podcast. But as far as, launching or expanding a business, when I first started, the first year was really just learning the necessary like legal filings, how to set up the business, bank accounts, website, there's just so much of that. So like you were saying, that's like the to-do list, right? It wasn't until I realized I needed to get a space and I needed one quickly. So I got a temporary location for about 7 months and then I found the building where I am currently. And once I got approved for the lease and got the keys, moved back home for a few months while remodeled this location. But right in the midst of that was my dad had a horrible stroke. And my parents were out of state when it happened. And so they wouldn't allow him to travel. So it was almost like right when I got the keys to open this location, I had to drop everything and go out to Miami where my dad was in the hospital. And they stayed there for a long time. My mom was basically having to live there while that was going on. In addition, my younger sister, who I've got 2 younger sisters and we're all super, super close, huge support network for each other. My younger sister got sent out to Paris to be on a reality show. And so it was myself and my younger sister back here trying to hold everything down while my parents are over here dealing with my dad's stroke. My other sister's gone, and all the craziness of everybody kind of the country and city ramping back up after COVID. And so in the midst of all of that, my mom's an interior designer, so I thought she was going to help me, but she just was not accessible. She got kind of taken away. So I ended up having, it's amazing what will happen when you get put in a position where you don't have a choice.
Yeah. And for the viewers and listeners, you're going to see, I'm going to show you the befores and afters because I have all those things, but just what you built in a year.
Yeah. The feeling, when you get put in that position where you don't have a choice, you really do have a choice. You can either keep going or you can quit. And I am very, very vocal about how many times I have wanted to quit. Not because I didn't believe in my dream anymore. It's not because I wanted to quit what I was doing. It was because it just got so hard. It was so difficult. Even with the business I currently have in the early months of opening this location, I'm pointing because it's right over there. There was one time, I just had a complete breakdown. I came home from work on a Friday. I went in my closet and basically sat in there for a day and just cried. Johnny was coming in. He was like, what can I do? What can I do? I was like, nothing. You can't do anything. I can't do this anymore. It was so hard because in the moment, I felt like I just wanted to collapse and go into a hole. But what was really happening was I was going through a metamorphosis is what was really happening. So it was, I can see a very definitive timeline of it. And when I almost kind of woke up and the clouds parted and I was like, okay, I'll be damned if somebody's going to take this from me. I went from being it's giving me chills actually, but I went from being I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. I don't have enough money. I'm never going to have enough money. I can't deal with setting up the infrastructure of the business, managing employees, managing agents, teaching my own clients, taking care of my family, taking care of my house, being a wife, being there for my family, my extended family. The amount of pressures that are put on the majority of women is insurmountable, and you can never escape it. And then, so you're also going through, whether it's mom guilt or spouse guilt or whatever it is. My workouts went on the back burner, and I've always been huge into that. Everything just disappeared. Literally just got sucked away, and it was nothing but work all day, every day. Then I had close friends. So I talk about this a lot because I think this is really important. You deal with so much shit from even your closest friends, your very, very best friends, because one, they don't understand why you're choosing to do this.
Yeah.
And then they also don't like that you've been taken away from them.
Yep.
And so I would say, it's temporary, guys. It's just right now. It's just for a year. It's just for a year. But those friends, they just don't understand what you're doing. I've been really lucky. I have some really amazing close friends, and a lot of them work for me. But there's definitely been, you read this all the time. You say, once you start trying to do something like this, a lot of the people in your life will kind of fall by the wayside, and they do. Yeah. Even family members or extended family members, we never see you anymore. Yeah. I'm like, don't you understand? I'm building this so I can take care of you. And something like this is not built overnight. Yeah. And the same thing my mom used to always say to me when my kids were little is this too shall pass. This isn't going to last forever. You're really investing in something. It's a temporary, super intense investment so that eventually it's not like that anymore. But in order to do that, you have to have such a strong backbone, such a thick skin. You have to kind of block everybody out, which is difficult because it doesn't matter if you're the strongest woman in the world. You still need the support. You still need, the support of your friends or your spouse or whatever it is, your partner. and you're just trying to be, so stoic and so strong. And then, it's kind of a catch-22 because you're sitting here trying to build the storefront of your business in multiple ways, and it doesn't feel like you're going to build a strong business if you're constantly telling everybody this is so difficult.
Yeah. It is. We know we've been through this. For those, again, if you're listening and watching and you've listened and watched us before, like this isn't your first time, you know that we don't script. This is why we have
promise
Laura.
We didn't script.
Promise. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, it's everything that we teach, everything that we say, everything that we do. We've seen it from the outside. This is like, and I hope that you go back and listen to your own episode. Actually, I hope you go back and watch your.
I never listen to anything.
I think
I'm like, don't show it to me.
Well, I also think you're not hosting this. This is about you and your journey and what you're doing. Like you're in it right now. For the women who are like, I can never do that. That's not me. So that's one thing. Like where we're so like, again, this is something that I've been waiting to do for a long time, and the time wasn't right last year because you needed to go through this for you to be on our podcast.
Yeah, and like I can openly talk about like moments that I'm ashamed of, where I've had breakdowns in the office. I mean, I'm not trying to get away from talking about the internal part, but the external part is what's forcing you to go through the internal transformation. When, I worked my numbers a billion times. I mean, I think this happens to everybody, but once I actually got into this space and launched the business, officially launched the business like hardcore in a brick and mortar location, like we are official now, like we can officially do certain things that we couldn't before. And everything costs more than you think.
Yep.
Everything takes longer than you think.
Yep.
It sounds real great to sit there when you're brainstorming with your staff and be like, okay, so we're going to build this. It's going to make our lives easier. We're going to build this type of infrastructure and this system. Well, how the hell are you supposed to build that when you don't even have time to eat or sleep or go to the bathroom, and you're running out of money, and you're getting pulled on from a million different places? You are having to, the focus that you have to commit to and develop. And then, I would just reach a point where I was so frustrated because I was leaning on staff to do certain things. And when they wouldn't perform, it always falls back on the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. So 2 things I've already heard so far. Determination.
Yes.
You're very determined. So that's who you're being, a very determined person to say, this is going to happen. Even in the midst of being in a closet where you're like, that's fine. You know what I mean? It's like, we have moments, we're real people.
Correct.
You have emotions. You're frustrated. You're like, oh my God, why is this all happening? The world's coming down on me. You emote, you're in there. But again, internally, there's something inside of you that says, oh, hell no. I am so determined to do this. Right? And then the second thing you just said, you're focused. You're determined, but you're laser sharp with the focusing of what you need to do and take care of.
Yeah, it's tunnel vision.
Yep.
You've got blinders on and it's just tunnel vision. I will say that the majority of like the past 1 to 2 years, it's like there's something, I almost feel like a puppet. Like something is controlling me. Like there's a higher power that's like, this is what you're doing. Because, the brokerage model, not that this is about this, but it is not easy to sustain. It's a very, very delicate ecosystem. And if you're not paying attention to it every single second, you can go out of business really quickly. So, first and foremost, a brokerage is a business. It really has nothing to do with real estate. It's a business. So there's overhead, there's income, there's revenue. Like you have all that stuff. You've got to have insurances in place. I've got like 10 different kinds of insurance. I mean, in order to do it the right way. Right. And like I said, it costs money. And when you're first starting, there's usually a lack of that unless you get an investor and then now you have to, you know, sign away part of your business. I'm all about leveraging money to make more. So I'm not against that.
Of course.
But where I was coming from, having an investor did not make sense. But I'll say what I think the number one, there's so many things, but I think the number one most difficult thing to deal with when you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to start a business, and this comes from internal, is you are usually embarking on this journey or trying to start this business. I mean, unless it's just a passion project and you're like, I have all this money to throw away and I don't care if I make any, right? So unless it's that,
No one
most people are trying to build the business that they dream of because they have a vision of it giving them something they want. So whether that's freedom and money or both, which that's what I want. I mean, that's what most people want. A legacy, something to hand down to their kids, something to provide financial security. There's a million different reasons why, but whatever it is that you are striving for, you know, the feelings and what you're going to achieve, you think you're going to get that through this business. And when you start trying to open the business and launch the business, it is not that.
You're like, where's my time? Where's my freedom?
It is not that. Yeah. It's not that at all, even 1%.
Yeah.
So you're so, you know, temporarily robbed of all the things that make you happy and all the things that keep you stable. You're not getting any sleep. You're not getting to eat. I mean, Johnny and I have not that we were ever really big date night people, but we would at least sometimes get away every night. Like, we have not been like alone together like a year. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, it seeps into every part of your life. But what's so difficult is when you're in that time period where you don't see the end. You're like, what did I get myself into? I'm in too deep. I'm not gonna abandon this for whatever reason, how much time or money I've spent on it or whatever. And I'm definitely not, just because if I abandon this, I'm gonna have to start something else.
Yeah.
So like, you're looking at all, you're just back and forth and you're ping-ponging all over. It's very, very difficult to keep your vibe high.
Yeah.
So your vibe starts to dip, and you know, if you're educated on the emotional scale, once you start going down that downward spiral, it starts going so fast.
Yeah.
And so I have internally, as a person, I have one of the biggest things that I've done, I would say, is become extremely in tune to my emotions.
Love this.
Oh my
And the second that I start to feel myself getting doubtful or negative, or even the feeling of like, do I even want to do this anymore? Like, as soon as I start feeling that, I'm like, okay, I know that I need to step away.
Yep.
I need to step away. I need a break, because of course I want to do this. I love this. I love going to bed at night because I'm excited to get up in the morning to go to work. Like, I love everybody I work with. I literally work with all my best friends. I love what I do. So when I start to feel negative in any way, I put myself in check. It took it took going through.
Yeah, you have to go through all
All
the
of that.
phases.
Pausing.
We tell this to our clients all the time. I'm like, it's
God.
like you know what we were going to talk about, but we talk about the struggle. You have to pause. Sometimes a reset button. Sometimes you're stepping away. Sometimes it's just like turn it off. You're going to be okay. You can walk away from the business for a few days, even a week if you need to kind of get that creativity back. I think this really leads into I love that you talked about the business. I want to talk about your relationship with yourself, because all of the women that we coach, or the communities that we're in, all the networking we do, it's always like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is where I work. This is the business I own. I have kids. I'm a wife, blah, blah, blah. But it's never, hi, who am I? And what does the relationship with myself look like now? We can go to the past, but like today.
That's a hard
Laura,
question.
I know it's hard, but it's important because we put ourselves on the back burner. And you just said it in the last 20 minutes. We are embarking this journey of entrepreneurship, building a business. Like it or not, it's the raw truth on our own. Nobody will understand it. I love my husband. Our husbands are very similar. There are fans, and granted, your husband has started multiple businesses, but all in all, it's still on our own. I can't, like, I'm going to have my husband go listen to this because sometimes I feel like, I'm like, do you not see what I do? And do you not understand
Johnny's
where I
my
am?
biggest cheerleader, and he also can empathize with a lot because he has started businesses. I mean, it's amazing when you can say, you know, one thing to somebody and you don't have to say anything else and they already can empathize, not sympathize, like empathize.
Yeah.
But it's, like I said, no disrespect to the guys out there. Even to women that don't have children, like it's what a woman already has to do in this life. And it's not even like current day. I mean, it was worse.
Yeah, of course.
Thousands of years ago, you know? Doesn't matter if you're a mom or not. I mean, being a mom, yes, there's a whole like 20 more layers added to it, so much more responsibility, so many more ways to feel guilty for not being there. But at the end of the day, women have so much to do to just keep up with themselves, from nails, lashes, tanning, hair, working out, you know, just skin treatment, you name it, just stuff so that you're not always critiqued and criticized, because it's the first thing everybody wants to do. And, you know, for a guy to get up, and Johnny gets ready.
Just rolls into work. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah.
I like get mad at him.
Yeah.
He's like, what did I do? I'm like, you just got ready in 2 minutes.
Yep.
I can't stand you right now.
Yep.
You know?
Well, in all
like,
fairness,
and
he
I'm
doesn't
sitting
have any
there
hair.
like brushing my hair, texting on my phone. I'm like packing 2 sets of clothes because one is like stilettos and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and the other one is flip flops. So that it's just like what we have to do to even be kind of like accepted by society. And if you don't keep yourself up, the first thing everyone does, mainly women, is critique you or tear you down. It's the first thing. I mean, even my own friends will be looking at social media and they'll be zooming in like, oh, she's too skinny, or she's too, you know, I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, I don't even notice that stuff anymore.
No,
I'm like,
we're not.
once you've been through what I went through,
But I also
don't
think
even notice.
you talked about earlier that you're feeling like, we've talked about this also, of self-image is very important, not just as a brand, as a person, but for you to feel connected to the person you're becoming or the woman that you want to be. So I know that that's very important in my daily routine. Even if I don't leave my house, I still get ready in the morning.
There's
I
a
still
form of
I
it
do
for
too.
each
Yeah,
person.
I always tell her, I'm like, I could be the last person on earth. I'm still getting ready.
right. Because, again,
Like,
that's part of just a feeling that makes me feel good every single day of the person that I am and the person that I'm becoming. But again, going back, I know it's a hard question, but like, how do you feel with you? Like, your emotions with yourself. I mean, I can tell you all the things. I mean, I see you. I'm so proud of you. What you're doing.
Thank
but like,
you.
You as a person, like, you wake up in the morning. Like, what's that? Like, do you have self-love? Do you?
Oh, yeah.
You know, do you? Because a lot of women don't. We talked about this in our coaching call this morning. Are you taking the time to even think yourself, like, what you're doing for you, for your family, for your kids, for your daughter, for your team, like. A lot of women won't do that. They're like, oh my God, that's so weird.
I've honestly never really struggled with that. But I do have a lot of women that come onto my path that do struggle.
Yeah.
I've always been very, very vocal. I mean, I guess that's not true. I probably did struggle at the beginning. I was raised in a really, really religious family. You know, growing up, I was the oldest of 3. I've always been super ambitious and driven, very high achiever. I was never offered the option of being anything but a mom or wife. I was told I had fairy tale childhood. My parents are amazing. My mom is amazing. You should have her on here. But you know, it was just that time period. I mean, I'm 47, so this was in the 70s and 80s, and it still wasn't really like women had come into their own yet. And I mean, I was pretty much told, your job is to find a Christian husband and have kids. Like, literally, that is what I was told.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I hit like 30 and I went through a divorce. My family disowned me for leaving my first husband because God doesn't like divorce.
Right.
I went through all of that. I'm still very much a Christian and all of those things, but you know, I definitely had to kind of reinvent the relationship with myself. It was almost like on a yearly basis. But then once you start doing that, you get to a certain point and it kind of starts to snowball. And I almost feel like I have a different relationship with myself almost hour to hour throughout the day now. Definitely from the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep, You know, when I'm driving home and I'm exhausted, I'm just like end of like tax stuff right now. I'm like drowning in all of that. I'm getting home late, and by the time I get home, and then I get home and I'm flipping laundry. I'm doing all this stuff. No offense to Johnny, he tries to help, but like guys just don't get it. Like they don't notice the stuff we notice. They're not worried about the nesting and keeping the home a certain way. He's like, who cares if there's
laundry not folded?
Yeah, who cares? But I'm like, it's not that I care what anyone thinks. It's not that we're having anyone over. This is what I need, because at the end of the day, we still have like our original DNA hardwiring. So even though we want to use the empowered part of ourselves and our intelligence and our gifts and our abilities and go out there in the world and make a difference and build things, we still have that genetic hardwiring. And a woman wants her home. I always tell them, I'm like, I know I'm pretty hardcore and I'm intense and I can talk all this shit, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I still want you to be my man. Like, I'm not trying to be a guy. I'm not out here trying to be a feminist saying I don't need a man. I still want a partner. But the relationship with myself, I don't think I've ever struggled with the question.
I mean, I feel like you're doing a great job
answering,
answering it. And we were going to get into, do you want to?
No, I was just going to say again, if someone's really listening to what you're saying, you are truly in tune with what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Everything that you do is like, okay, you put a boundary with family and friends because of how you were feeling, right? Right now, everything you just said was how you're feeling. It's okay. If it speaks to you to go home and you go, I like to, hey, it's the most mundane task, but it's almost like a thing you can do complete. And I bet you at the same time you're processing. Every single time you fold, something's
your
brain is not shutting off, but I bet you
I have not found anything to make my brain stop.
But I bet you at the end of the day for you are some of your most creative moments. Like you're processing again the day, you're tapping into your feelings, you're folding the laundry, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, what if tomorrow I did this differently? Or what if I need to talk to that person? Because you're slowing yourself down and you're listening.
That's correct.
You really are being authentic to who you are, which so many people struggle with, which is so hard. And I love what you just said. I am the exact same way. I will be out in the streets taking names and kicking butt all day long, but at the end, I can take care of my car. I can change light bulbs. I can pay. I'm like completely independent, right? But yes, I want a partner.
Yeah.
Someone who's going to be my equal and a man.
Yeah. I've always been very independent. It's my personality type, but it doesn't mean I want to be alone.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
They're two different things. I think a lot of people tend to like group certain things together. And, you know, one reason that I will tell you right now, one reason I am even okay is because luckily my partner is also an entrepreneur and he's been through everything I'm going through. Now, he didn't go through it as a wife and mother and as a female.
Right.
So he can only really so far. But he's actually gotten really good about recognizing that. He's like, he'll say, I know I'm not experiencing this the same way you are, but you know. And then the other thing that is a big struggle, I think a lot of women struggle with, is like when there'll be periods of time that aren't so bad, they're kind of chill, but then kind of when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
And those are the times when you get a whole bunch on your shoulders at once. You just kind of get gut punched over and over, and you're like, oh my God, I can't handle this. And one of the biggest things that irritates me the most that he will say, but it's also the best thing for him to say, is he'll be like, well, why don't you just quit? You don't have to work, just quit. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm like, what? And throw away everything I've built. Da, 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 da. Do you know how many people I help? You know? And he'll be like, okay, well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, damn you. You know?
So good.
But another thing is, I will say this. I've always been really big about trusting my gut. Mm-hmm. It has never been wrong one time.
Your intuition.
And I have had to rely on that more than ever in this past year.
Oh,
Yep.
Oh God, I could drop the
Because
mics. Drop all the mics.
When you're
Up, pick it back
making
up.
decisions,
Yeah. which most women, we talked about this morning, they shut it up. It's the intuition, the soul, the gut, whatever that feeling is, and they're told, no, don't listen to that.
Well, because they're
almost
trying
afraid
to
of
base
it.
it on logistics or stats or which this is a good thing, and it's okay to ask for advice or input, but then that also starts to like cloud everything. If you shut everything out, if you literally just ask yourself, I do this all the time. This is one of the things I've learned to do. I'll just shut everything out and I'll be like, what should I do about ... Whatever comes into my head instantly, I'm like, that's the right answer.
Just
my
like
God.
you. Just like you.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's what she does to me. She's like, let's talk, and she asked me the question, and I'm like, okay, fine. It's so easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's a relationship with yourself. You didn't know how to answer it. You're answering all.
Well,
I mean,
you're
that's
listening
like,
to your higher self.
Of course.
I mean, most women are so far, their higher self is way over there and it's calling to them.
Well, their
and
higher
way
self is the
back here.
comparison to another woman, which is not your true self.
Yeah.
Right? So again, you're listening to you, you're listening to your intuition, and you're saying, no matter what this looks like, and again, you're taking responsibility, you're willing to take the risk, and you're saying, it may not go right, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, taking risk it's a big part of it.
I want to move into. Johnny's already been in a lot of this episode, so we're going to move on from Johnny because we were going to ask about. But I
know,
wasn't trying to give him so much.
I know so much credit.
Time.
No, it's okay. No, I think it's important, but I want to talk about you as a disruptor in your industry. 3 years ago, four years ago, somebody told me I was a disruptor in my industry, and we're not going to say his name anymore. But your husband. And then from there, I was like, I love that word, and I don't think it's bad. But again, going back to social media, going back to comparison, going back to however you want to use social media. We teach a class on creating legacies. We teach a class on following your mentors. You may know them, not know them. You and Johnny have always been a mentor as like a unit, as like a
yeah, you've been really vocal about that with me.
And then also as parents, especially parents of a teenage girl, but then just you in general. So when people are like, oh my God, I'm scrolling and looking, I'm looking for women like me that are women that I want to be like. And so I'm appreciative of social media because I'm able to follow you and other women that they don't know me. I don't know them. So I want to talk about what you're doing for real estate, because you've started some courses, which I love. And then I want the listeners and viewers to hear that, because we are very connected in Houston to a lot of real estate agents. For years, I've heard all the things. And I'm like, when I see you, I'm like, it's a completely different, it's like A and B. I'm like, but Laura's doing something completely different. Her team's doing all these things. So talk about the course. And then I also want you to give some insight on this whole renter. I was like so intrigued with the renters, and how you should be serving that community.
Oh, it makes so many people so angry when I talk about it.
But when I heard it,
she's the instigator.
When I heard it, I was like, she needs to talk about this.
Yes,
absolutely. Because this is, and again, this is not competition. This is like, she is giving all these real estate agents nuggets, because I'm like, yeah, to me that makes sense, and I'm not even in the industry. So course and your renters, because that's
oh my goodness.
Fires me
You're
up.
giving me way too much credit.
No.
I mean, when you're a licensed real estate agent, you're an independent contractor. You can do whatever you want with your business as long as you're following TREC guidelines and your broker's guidelines. So branding yourself is just so important. So many people come out the gates with real estate and they don't want to miss a deal. So they try to be everything to everybody. And good coaches will they'll tell you, don't try to be that. It doesn't matter whether you're in real estate or just in life. You cannot be everything to anyone.
No.
Or available all the time to everyone.
You'll
Just
exhaust
throwing it out there.
You'll
I'm putting
exhaust
it out there.
yourself.
Well, I mean, this is a whole other thing. In order to cross a certain threshold in real estate with your business and start making a certain amount of money, it is inevitable. You have to figure out how to scale, and you're scaling yourself. So the way to do that is to start a team. There's other ways you can do it. I always coach my agents, you can put videos on YouTube. That way, while you're asleep, people are watching you and listening to you and getting to know you. You're building a relationship and trust. Then you have them reaching out to you saying, hey, I've gotten to know you. I think I'd like to work with you. Yep. Instead of you being like, hey, I'm in real estate, use me. I mean, you got 30,000 people doing that. That doesn't work.
Yep.
But that aside, I had done a year of some really, really amazing coaching several years ago, and this was right around the time that I decided to start a brokerage. And I remember my coaching was coming to an end. The salesperson reached out to me and wanted me to re-up, and sign on for another year. And I said, I think I'm going to go do this thing I want to do. He actually got angry. He got mad at me. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, why would you want to go start a brokerage when you can just make $500,000 being a team lead?
Yeah.
And as it was coming out of his mouth, I thought to myself, it's not even worth me trying to explain to you why I want to, because obviously you're not the type of person that will understand my why.
Yeah.
Because it's not always about money.
No.
I mean, yeah, I want to get paid for what I do, and you need money to live and all, and I like nice things. But ultimately, I feel like maybe it might take me a little bit longer. Yeah, I could have just gone out and in a couple years maybe been making a whole bunch of money as a team lead. Maybe this is going to take me a few years longer. But I will have followed my truth and my mission and my passion and have something that I look forward to doing every single day.
See where that's where the gut came in again.
Yes.
The intuition, the gut,
Yeah.
the feeling, and the burning
Along the
desire.
way,
Yeah.
helping someone
Oh, yeah.
and creating
Absolutely.
something that's really not being done.
Yeah.
The creative side.
So with that being said, in the meantime, I was like, well, what's one of my value propositions with brokerage? I'll talk fast about it. But one of it was I'm going to offer training. So I teach these workshops. They're all day. They're really meant to be 2 full days, but I can't find anybody that's willing to do 2 full days of training, which is unbelievable to me. It kind of upsets me.
Yeah.
Because if they would sit through the 2 full days, they get so much more out of it. They can get so much more content. I've had to shorten it to 1 day. It's 1 full day of training. And I teach everything that nobody else teaches. So I teach how the psychology behind marketing, the psychology behind having a consultation with someone, how to be of service to someone, how to offer a really high level, like white glove level of service. It's humility is huge, right? So humbling yourself, it's all of those things. Then I teach how to use a lot of the materials that we provide for the brokerage that I developed myself, but it is teaching you how to use those so that you can scale, so you can juggle multiple clients at once. Because having 1 client every 2 months, you can't live off of that. So if you want to have 2 or 4 or 5 closings a month, you have to have systems in place to be able to successfully juggle all of that. Or bring on an assistant so your assistant can do what they need to do while you're out in the field. The assistant isn't any good if they know what to do. So we have I teach everyone how to use everything to do that. But with that being said, those workshops, it's really like 2 full days of material. So I am putting that into an online
Course.
on online teaching platform. This is an example of something that sounds really easy.
Yeah. We know.
It is not. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
Finding the time to do that in addition to what I'm already doing. The first course that I filmed was the renter course, and I started with that for a reason. I'm not joking. I have a handful of people that are witnesses. I stayed up for almost like 4 days straight to film it because it was the only time I could find the time to film it was at night. So I was literally at my office all night long until like 7 in the morning, multiple days in a row. And I had my assistant at the time. She was working around the clock with me as well. I had Johnny and his team. And the whole time I kept just telling Johnny, I'm like, I'm indebted to you because if so much of what you're doing, I didn't even know that I needed, because I would say, hey, I need this to do this. And he'd be like, oh, I know what to do. But luckily I had access to that, But so I've got that. And then some positive things have spun off of that. In real estate, the first year you're in real estate, when you are a totally green agent, you don't know what you don't know. You're fumbling around. It is a nightmare.
I can only imagine.
I really don't wish it on anyone. And it's so funny because of the business that I'm in. But a lot of brokerages will not even talk to an agent until they're 1 or 2 years into their business. If you just got your license, there are so many brokerages that are like, come back in a year, come back in 3 years, come back when you've sold X amount.
Wow.
So, when we opened, I was like, okay, well, where's the low-hanging fruit? And not in a manipulative way, but it's just realistic. Like, where can I get my first business from? It's kind of like when you first get your license, you'll take anything, So I was like, I'm fine with taking brand new agents, like agents that have literally just passed their exam and don't know what they're doing. So I said, this course is going to give them online training. They can access it whenever they want. And it's also going to help me because this is how, instead of agents blowing up my phone or stopping by the office and saying, what do I do? I'm like, there's never an easy answer for that.
Right.
It's usually like a 3-hour answer.
Yeah.
So it helps me scale myself if they can go into the course and watch that information as they need.
Yep.
So
I love that. And I also
that's
think
where
that
came from.
if you can't do that as a new agent, then this isn't the business for you. I mean, you do have to take the time to...
All these agents, they want a mentor because that's what you need. And mentors come in all shapes and sizes. Yeah. But what a real estate agent is looking for, a new agent is looking for in a mentor, is what they ultimately want is they want to be handheld and spoon-fed. Yeah. And it doesn't happen.
No. Well, I feel like in this episode we gave you so many nuggets. Before we log off, where does Laura see herself in 10 years?
I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Probably with more people in my house, more people blowing up my phone. I don't know. I mean, you know, I've got 4 kids. My oldest is 27. And maybe one day I'll be a grandmother. But I love kids and our house is always full. So honestly, I couldn't tell you where I want to be with the business or something like that because that changes almost daily.
Yeah.
But I do know what, like, the core values that I'm desiring right now. And one, I definitely want to travel because I've never really gotten to travel. But the biggest thing is my core value for this year is it's to clarity and tranquility. So I want to be like super, super clear because I went through so much time in the past couple years where I was not clear and it's a miserable place to be. So the clarity is a big deal, and tranquility is a feeling, what I feel is like not being stressed out. So I can't wait to like enjoy and reap the benefits of everything that I've put in over the past few years. That's
okay. So when we talk to our clients and we talk to them, we call it a now goal. Like, what is your goal now that you're working towards, right? And we really try to help them understand it's attached to a feeling.
100%.
It's not about, $10 million, right? It's
right.
The feeling of, and I almost pictured it while you were saying it. Maybe grandchildren, family, travel, your home, like that's your nest, that's your hub. So all the things that you're working towards right now eventually just lead into family and the tranquility and just like you've created the space for you and Johnny to just enjoy.
Yeah, and I mean, also what happens is in order to gain that tranquility, maybe I do need money in the bank. But you can't strive for the money, you have to strive for the feeling. And then that will come, whatever it is, whatever.
Well, and the money's going to come from you're actually teaching, helping, and serving a niche that needs it.
I know this is a whole nother thing, we could do another podcast on this.
I'm so ready.
People charging what they're worth.
We
there
will.
We go. That's
we
our
will
next
do a panel on
that's
that.
The biggest, I would say that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had from this past year.
Oh my God, Laura, we cannot thank you enough.
Yes.
Thank you. I had no idea.
Thank you.
By the way, it's 111. We're all about the angel numbers.
Oh,
really?
Like, is it 111?
No, we're filming this.
Today.
Yes, we wanted to be true
Yes,
to the angel
intentional.
numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you to the team here at J. Weiss Marketing. This is our sponsor of the show. We will have everything in their show notes. If you need to get a hold of Laura, we'll have that in our show notes too. Real estate, all of our real estate friends, you're welcome, because we're going to put that course up for you guys. We're going to keep on disrupting the industry with Laura. And until next time, we'll be back.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye.